My name is Darren Joseph from HTJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify the sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have the honor and privilege of having another conversation with Mark. Mark, could you introduce yourself?
I'm an advisor to the entire financial industry on CRS, FATCA, and CARF, and I've advised the OECD and the EU Parliament and the EU Commission and the German government, etc. All this is on my website for anybody to look at.
Fantastic. What is the difference between Form 8938, which was that new form that didn't exist before FATCA, and the FBARs, the Foreign Bank Account Report, which actually goes all the way back to 1970 with the Bank Secrecies Act?
So you mentioned 8938 is submitted by the individual, but it's also submitted by a non-participating FFI who makes a withholdable payment to an entity and you agree to treat as a documented FFI or a passive NFE. But the FBAR is the most famous, I think, of all forms that are required to be filled in, and especially the huge taxes, penalties, if you don't fill it in. It's not submitted by the non-participating FFI. It's required to be submitted by U.S. persons, citizens, residents, corporations, partnerships, limited companies, trusts, etc. And it must report the financial interest or other signature or authority over at least one financial account outside the U.S. if the aggregate value of those financial assets exceeds $10,000 at the time of reporting at the end of the year. Whether the account produces taxable income or not, which we just explained, has no effect whether the account is a foreign financial account, which must be reported. You'll be likely subject to civil and monetary penalties and criminal penalties for FBAR reporting and record-keeping violations. The standard penalty for willful failure is $100,000, which is huge, or 50% of the account's maximum value at the time of the violation, whichever is higher, for each year a person didn't file in a FBAR. In some cases, willful non-compliant results in criminal penalties, including a prison sentence. That explains why FBAR takes priority over everything else.
So people complain because taxpayers, US exposed taxpayers, are like, it's saying substantially the same things. Why do I have to fill in both FBARs, otherwise known as FinCEN 114, as well as 8938? Well, as you pointed out, the FBARs, the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, this is one everyone knows about. It started in 1970 under the Bank Secrecy Act. And with the Patriot Act after the unfortunate events of 9/11, it was given a lot of teeth. The penalties for non-compliance became particularly aggressive, as you pointed out, both civil and potentially criminal penalties for being willful in your non-compliance. Now, the thing is that the FinCEN 114, as the name suggests, actually doesn't go to the IRS. It goes to the FinCEN, or Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. 8938 goes to the IRS, which is the FATCA form, Statement of Foreign Financial Assets, goes to the IRS. They both are under the Department of Treasury, but they're two completely autonomous and separate divisions. However, the IRS can request the FBARs, but they don't get it automatically, which is perhaps why they were heavily incentivized to create the 8938 when FATCA came along, so that they can collect that data directly and on their own. It is, I mean, there are a lot of nuances, too many to get into on this high-level introductory conversation. But as we pointed out earlier, the definition of a foreign financial asset for the 8938 is much wider than it is for the FBARs, which is restricted to cash type accounts. In addition to which, the exchange rate, like the 8938, they kind of insist on using Treasury, whereas we tend to use IRS exchange rates for the FBARs. The people who need to fill it out, sometimes it's a wider catchment in terms of account holders who need to fill out the FBARs. The reporting thresholds, of course, are completely different. FBARs are really straightforward. It's when your total aggregate balance over a year of all the foreign accounts exceeds $10,000, whereas with the 8938, it could be as low as 50,000, and it could be as high as 300,000, depending on your situation. They are similar, but there are important differences. And as always, if in doubt, I just tell everyone, just seek the advice of a competent international tax team that's familiar with both. And with that, Mark, thank you very much for the pleasure of your company and sharing your insights. And if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way is just to go to my website, which is co-ownershiptrust.com.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.